I'm very happy to welcome Roxanne Varza and Sarah Drinkwater. And Sarah, we already called her out at the beginning of the event today. She's one of the first. There's two people who think they were our first investment. We'll leave it that way.
Factually, it was me, let's be clear.
Yes, I think so. I think so too. You're right. And Roxanne and Sarah go back quite a long time, I think. They've co-invested, they've been friends. And they both are very passionate about a topic that we're going to talk about today, and that is community. And I want to start out with a very sophisticated question that I've thought about a lot. Isn't community kind of bullshit? Isn't that a buzzword? So I'm interested in what exactly that is and why we're here even talking about it.
Sarah, who should smash this? I love this question.
Yes, me too.
I love this question because I know everyone here is thinking it. Completely. But I also think that people who think this don't understand startups and don't understand the ecosystem. So community is so pivotal to building a company and to building an ecosystem. At Station F, I can talk about communities for hours and go on in multiple directions about how we've done it and what's made it kind of survive, because it's been around. Station F has now been open for 7 years, and we have a community of 65 different nationalities and people working on all kinds of different businesses. But I really think cracking the human component, it really comes down to a human component, is so important for any business and for any ecosystem. But Sarah, I know you'll complete that better than me.
I think there are so many amazing AI companies right now that feel to me like projects. They have incredible cutting edge technology, but they don't understand who their customer is. They're not listening to their customer, and they have no way to connect them to the product. So a co-investment Roxanne and I have is a company called .txt, really compelling AI infrastructure open source company. When we both invested at pre-seed, they had 10,000 downloads a month. They had 650,000 last month. And so much of that is really around building a product that for AI engineers brings them utility plus belonging, which is kind of the secret ingredient of any community. And I think particularly at early stage, the stage that you and I both invest at and work in, if you are not raising a 50 or 100 million first fund, early stage investing is about collaboration. It's a network game. It's a game of knowledge. It's a game of seeing things really early. It's a game of connections. So I think of community in two ways. I think of how do you help companies win, and how do you help you win by knowing where to look for incredible companies and helping them thrive.
Okay, so taking this as a background and taking for granted that communities might not be bullshit, I would really enjoy for both of you to explain to somebody who might never heard of either Station F or of Common Magic what it is that you do and why it's important to you and also in general.
I'll let you go first, Sarah.
Yeah, so Common Magic is a 10 million solo fund investing in products with community at their core, mostly in Europe and occasionally in the US. And I think of my job as a solo GP is to find the right set of investments for my LPs with a goal of making money, core thing. But at the same time, with a very strong horizontal focus around bottom-up go-to-market. That's what I'm best at, that's what I'm known for, and that's what I can help companies do. And so my last investment in Switzerland is a robotics company building egg-packing robots where the go-to-market rests on farming associations. So community can mean many different things. I've done quite a lot in developer tools and open source. I've done quite a lot in crypto. So to me, community is really about, I think small funds can win if they have particular operational expertise. I'm known for community, so I get deal flow in that space, and that aspect of my advisory work helps companies win.
Super. And Station F, for anybody who doesn't know it, so we're a big startup campus based in Paris. As I mentioned earlier, we've been around now for 7 years. We have 1,000 early stage companies always based on campus, so that's quite a massive community we run. Now over 7,000 companies have gone through our campus. When we started, the French ecosystem looked very different from the way that it does today. People couldn't put the French ecosystem on a map when they looked at the European ecosystems. They were like, London, Berlin, there's nothing else. And so since then, we've kind of brought the ecosystem together. We've made something kind of very identifiable, emblematic. And I think a lot of Station F is about, this is the entrance to the ecosystem. So it actually requires having a lot of connections with different organizations that are not even necessarily part of Station F. This is just really just how we funnel everyone now into the French ecosystem. And Over time, we've seen a lot of things change in the last few years. For example, in terms of investment volume, our campus, or all of our startups have raised 1 billion. This will be the third year that we'll go over the 1 billion target, so that's like 15% of the volume of France's total investment amount that goes through our campus, so quite substantial. But I would say that the community portion is actually really what's building the ecosystem, and not even just at Station F. Today, when people talk to me about France, and a lot of people seem to feel that France is now on the map, thankfully, and in a very, very big way, and especially around AI. The company that you mentioned happens to be a French company, or at least a French founder, based in France. And so a lot of people look at what's happening, especially around AI, and go, there's a strong AI community. Community is actually the word that they use, because these founders are coming together and going, how can we collectively move things forward? How can we all lobby for what we need? How can we all put everybody on the map together? And I think that's a very powerful way to build companies at scale.
Yeah, and I think, to echo that, so Roxanne and I are both ex-journalists that worked in big tech and ran big startup spaces. I used to run one in London.
That's very weird. Is there a
I know,
dating
it's
site
so
for
weird.
that? Or
It's super weird.
how did that
But
happen?
I think that's the acid community builder profile, right? Good listener, etc. And I moved back from San Francisco and gave up my green card to launch Common Magic in Europe, because I felt very strongly that the best companies come from everywhere. I think the European scene looks fundamentally different now to how it looked 10 years ago. But the whole point of community is getting smarter faster. If you're building a company where you're leveraging community to build go-to-market, in Europe, you look at Hugging Face, Miro, Monzo, Depop, you have all Unity, you have all these companies that have done it. And part of that is about keeping your customer close. And for startup scenes, it really is about how do you, when I was an operator in startups in the late noughties, we didn't know anything. There was an absolute lack of knowledge on the scene. And that's where places like Station F really changed the game. I go there and see my founders that are based there, and they hire faster. They meet a lot of the American investors come through there. I just think it's a fundamentally different way of building a company.
So I want to do a small experiment. Who in the room has heard of Station F? So that's probably more than half of the people, right? So Roxanne, that's amazing work. To me, that's very important. Because when you think about the French ecosystem, probably that's one of the first things that pop up. If Station F wasn't there, what would you think about? There would be nothing there. There would be nothing to kind of anchor this topic in your head. Right, and this to me is if you're not in France, I think that is the truth. And the other thing that I want to call out, what you just said, where you said community is a way to get smarter together faster. You just blew my mind a little bit, because I hadn't thought about that before. And this is kind of a theme with the GPs that we invest in. Every time I talk to them, I get a few tidbits out of that conversation that I'm going to be stealing forever. This is one of them. I do mean that we try to invest in GPs that we can really learn from, that are incredibly good at something that we find fascinating and important. And I've found over the last year that no matter what the topic is, when you get to the very, very top level of operators in that topic, be it communities, for example, things get very fascinating. And things that sound very soft and squishy and maybe bullshitty suddenly turn into really, really, really operationalizable things that you can really get something out of. And so this is why I really enjoy to talk to people like you. But how can you teach other people how to do that? So when you select founders, and I know that you both co-invested in some companies, is this something that's kind of a God-given gift, or is it something that can be taught?
I think it's an art and a science at the same time. Ultimately, community is a mechanism to achieve a certain business goal, right? If you look particularly at open source, most founders that I invest in have been open source contributors in that space, if they're building a new company in that area. So Remy, the founder of .txt, he and his co-founder had long-term cred in that scene. And what that meant is when they launched their new project, they had a willing audience of folks right at the start. What they needed help with was around structure, documentation, scaling. They're being used by NVIDIA, Databricks, lots of really interesting companies for free. The next piece of work is how to charge them, and how to effectively productize that work. And so I think there's a certain kind of founder archetypal profile that I particularly like, that resonates well with the art and the science of building a community, but I'd be curious to get your take.
I mean, it's really interesting because a lot of people come and they say, oh, we want to build Station F in our country, like, how do we do it? And they look at kind of like the basics and they go, okay, we need a building and we need a Wi-Fi and we need like 3 logos, and you can break it down to all this kind of stuff. But actually the real reason that people come to Station F is to be surrounded by all these other entrepreneurs that have in many cases already been through what they're trying to go through or are going through the same thing. And it's really just about, you have so many people that you're sure to find the answer to what you're looking for, the contact you need, the resource. You know, if you want to negotiate something, you're more likely to be able to get it done when you have this big group behind you. So I tell people, you know, you can put all the like building blocks into place, but when people tell us why they come, that's the number one reason. And I think that's the power of it.
Yeah. It's the feeling when you walk through the door. It's that feeling of energy. And the kind of products that I like to invest in have some sense of that around them because they're ultimately built in response to a very particular audience, a very particular kind of customer.
Okay. I think you've made most of the points that I wanted to make. And to me, this is a very interesting topic and one that I'm particularly bad at, right? So
It's not true.
And I want to thank everybody here today because this is, of course, obviously, this is our attempt at building community around something that we care about, which is how to get more people into asset allocation, doing interesting and useful things to society and the world at large. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. We're already at the end of our allotted time, it seems. I would have liked to keep going. Maybe let's do a podcast or something at some point.